Darmok, Ensign Rowe, and the Outcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of all of Season 5. This is our Season 5 review special. Some people say it's the best season of Next Generation. In fact, I think a lot of polls put number 5 at number 1. Let's talk all about it. We're going to fly through every episode at warp speed. How are you today, Sirach?
I'm doing great. I'm excited about this. This was actually a very good season. So, yes, I kind of can see if you go for overall episodes, like this might be the one that has the most good episodes in a season. Even though there are episodes from other seasons that I like a lot, maybe even some more than others in this season.
Yeah.
You know, I still think Measure of a Man, I always just burned in my head as just such a good episode.
And this one, season 5 does have a dip. You know, there's a few in a row. You know, it does have a dip, like a nice little roller coaster. But so far, it seems to have the most amount of bangers. So it's kind of like overall,
Yeah, overall, it's you know, it's been, you know, what happens is, and this happened for us too when we were doing DS9, is at some point you're settled. You know, there's like in the beginning you're getting to know the characters, you're getting to know what the plot is going to be about. You're just starting to feel things out. You're getting to know the other actors that you're working alongside, and the crew as well. And then, you know, as those kind of things break down and you realize, oh, we're here for the long run, which kind of hits you around season 4, you know, 3 or 4. Mm-hmm. That's when you feel like, oh, there's some stability to this series and we're not just going to be canceled right away. So around season 3, 4 is when you start to get rooted in the characters. You really start feeling comfortable, and you can tell that level of comfortability with these characters and their relationships with each other.
Yeah, so let's get into it. Everybody, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications, and if you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. We'd really appreciate that. And please come visit us at Sirach's place. He lives in, visit us on patreon.com/the seventh rule. That's patreon.com/the seventh rule to support the show and become part of the team. We'd really appreciate that. So this season, I'm already looking at this. Season 5, episode 1 was Redemption Part 2.
Yeah.
That was the Klingon Civil War. That feels like that was 3 years ago already.
I know. That's all. And that's because, again, you know, you watch shows now and it's like 8 episodes in a season. And so 3 seasons worth is basically what we watched in this 5th season, you know, comparatively, when you think about these 10 episode seasons and 8 episode seasons that we get nowadays. So yeah, it feels like a long time ago. But Redemption Part 2, this was Ronald Moore, David Carson. So they hit us with David Carson is directing. So they got a really great director for this. They got Ronald Moore, who's, you know, arguably the best writer of, you know, Star Trek. One of them at least. And
I would say he's on the Mount Rushmore of Star Trek writers. We should do that one of these days. Just have like a Mount Rushmore of Star Trek writers. But we had a great guest for this one. Can we even call her a guest? She's really part of the team. It's Denise Crosby. So it was great to have her back for that.
Yeah.
Because her character, Sela, was in it. But then we moved on to Darmok. Darmok is
that was a classic
favorite. Like people
that's a classic.
You've been hearing about this one since the DS9 days even.
Yeah. Love this episode. This is another favorite of mine. So look, they started with Redemption Part 2. They gave us Tony Todd. They gave us Denise Crosby. And then we come here to Darmok. And I thought the guest star in this was fantastic. The actor who played, you know, the Cation, right? Was that what he was? Or
Paul Winfield, yes, who played
Paul Winfield,
Temerian. That's what it was. He played Darmok. Captain Dathon, The
Yes.
Temerian by Paul
He
Winfield.
was
That's a lot of
he
names.
was Paul Winfield was phenomenal in this episode, and this is one of those episodes that once you see it, you can't.
Yeah.
It leaves a burning impression in your mind. So yes,
Right.
Darmok and Jalad on Tanagra, right?
It's there forever. Yep. Everybody quotes it forever. Then we had Ensign Rowe. We were just introduced to Ensign Rowe this season,
I
dude.
know,
What a
I
great
know.
character.
Very good character. Started off with a bang. As far as
What do you mean?
no, I meant the attraction that we felt between, or the chemistry opposite Riker's character, and so there was a lot of conflict there. Uh, we also know that she's the blueprint for what eventually became Major Kira's character, and we got the gift of the Visitor and her portrayal of that. So, yeah, Anson
Yeah.
Rowe, what can you say? She was fantastic. Les Landau, Michael Piller, Rick Berman wrote it. Les directed it, and I thought she was fantastic on screen. She's beautiful to watch, and you can see why this character would be a character you would want to bring back in some form or fashion in a reiteration of the show, much like what you got with Discovery and how they spin off Georgiou's character. When a character comes on and is so impactful on a series,
Right.
they think about ways in which they can bring that character back and use them again. Unfortunately, we didn't get Ensign Rowe. We got an Visitor, which I am totally satisfied.
We're
and
okay with
pleased
that.
with. Yeah,
Uh,
we're good with that.
And then next we had Silicon Avatar or Silicone Avatar. That was with the crystalline entity returning. That one is, I don't want to call it a less memorable episode, but it just kind of continues on from like the first season. So you can easily forget that it's in the fifth season because it feels like an early season episode.
Yeah, this doesn't have that much of a memorable impact on me. Let's see, I have guest actor was excellent. I don't even remember uh perhaps who that
Yeah.
was, but yeah, I don't know. Dr. Marr. Yeah, it just
Yeah.
I don't know. It just didn't jump out at me as something that
It's
blew my mind away.
Yeah, it's one of those episodes where if you ask a Star Trek fan, "Hey, remember Silicon Avatar?" They go, "Oh yeah," and you say, "Which season's that in?" They'll be like, "Ooh, I don't know,
Yeah,
two, four."
honestly, I'm reading my notes and I still don't know what it's about. Really, it's trying to
Yeah,
this silicone avatar trying to communicate with them and all this stuff. Yeah, okay.
but it's a chill one. It's good. You watch it, you enjoy it. It's just a good meal right there. It's comfort food. Then we had Disaster. That is a very memorable episode to me. We had a very memorable guest. Mr. Dan Curry joined us because he did all these visual effects for it. This is one that I remember really well because of everybody had their groupings, everybody had their moments and their scenes. They did a really good job of that.
Yeah, this is also a Ronald Moore episode, so he comes back in.
There he is.
We also had Gabriel Beaumont directing this. If I'm not mistaken, this is a moment where they used Data's head and they plugged into his head, right?
Yeah.
So they have a Data head drawing here. So yeah, that's what sticks out. Data's head on a platter.
It's not the last time we had Data's head in an episode. In fact, they did that like basically twice in one season. Another thing that happened twice in one season, no spoilers, but Will Wheaton joined us for episode 6, The Game. If you remember that one, boy, that's another memorable one. Sometimes you'll see people cosplaying with, The Game. And then, of course, we had the very memorable Ashley Judd playing Robin Leffler, who is kind of like Wesley's friend, if you'll recall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was lucky for that. Good on him.
He got a 70-year-old and he got Ashley Judd.
Yeah. Big takeaway from that is just, Will Wheaton being gracious enough to join us and share his experience working with Ashley on that and, reminiscing on those days. I do have that drawing of that kind of cylindrical cone thing where you have to put the disc in the cone. And yeah, so that did stand out to me. This was a great episode. We also had, if I'm not mistaken, a Nurse Ogawa sighting in this episode.
Yes, love her.
We had Boothby in this episode as well. I think there was a Boothby mention, if not mistaken.
Let me see. Was it?
Yeah, there was some recall.
Yeah. Right. Picard talking to Crusher about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Will Wheaton's my big takeaway from this is Will Wheaton saying, "You mean the suck disc episode?"
Oh yes. How could I forget that? Everybody was sucking discs through the whole episode, and Wesley Crusher was like, "No, I don't want to suck disc." And then even his girlfriend finally gave in and was like, "Dude, you got to try it though. It's really fun to suck disc."
Yeah, that was the big highlight from that one.
Oh, good old Will Wheaton, what a champ!
But by the way, so far, really only one episode that didn't jump out, which was Silicone Avatar.
Yeah.
That's the Jerry Taylor, Cliff Bole episode. But so far, we're 6 episodes in, and I like 5 of them.
Well, not only do we like them, they're just very memorable. Like,
they're memorable.
They stick with you forever. Just like this next one, this was huge when it happened. We go from Beverly Crusher's son to Leonard Nimoy's son. Adam Nimoy joined us for Unification Part 1 to tell us what it was like being on set when his dad, playing Spock, returned for TNG. When I remember when I saw Spock say, "And you have found him, Captain Picard," I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And just like everybody did,
Yeah. This is a memorable episode. This is, Jerry Taylor, teleplay, Rick Berman, and Michael Piller, obviously another, leaving their impact on the show with this one as well. I thought this was a great idea because you do want to have tie-in from one show to the other. You do want to have, characters tie in, and this is perfect for that. And we've seen Spock's father before, so I thought that was another good tie-in as well.
Yeah, Sarek.
Yeah.
And then really easy tie-in to episode 8, which was Unification Part 2. Not a ton to talk about there. Very memorable episode, very memorable 2-parter. Next Generation has some legendary 2-parters. I remember actually a handful of them just in the 7th season. One of my favorite episodes, 2-parters, I don't want to give it away, but is in season 7, a whole bunch of them. So I remember buying those little box sets where it's like, you can get Unification Part 1 and Part 2 for $29.95 or something. You're like, what a deal, because apart they're $19.95. But anyway, that was really cool.
Yeah, and you know what? We also got to see a performance for Denise where she gets to be a villain, because she played Sela in these 2-parter, and it's always fun to get a chance to, when you're a character that people like and love, and we accept you as somebody who's the nice person, to just be able to flip the coin sometimes and get to, tap into the inner villain in your performance. And I thought she did a great job with that.
It's fun to tap into the villain. But I snuck ahead and I kind of chuckled when I saw the next one. A Matter of Time was episode 9. That was when this guy, played by Max Headroom, or the guy that plays Max Headroom, he was like coming back in time, but really he was further back in time, that stole somebody's ship from further up in time and then came back and was stealing stuff. That actually, to me, is a very memorable episode because it had that twist at the end that I was definitely not. We knew there was something going on with this guy, but I didn't think it's a guy from actually our past, or their past.
Yeah, didn't have much of a B story in this episode. It was, that was the main thing. I do remember the thing that jumped out to me the most was that little watch that he had, a ring watch thing, where he was like talking into this thing that he flipped open. I thought, how cool was that? So yeah,
hit some poison in there too.
Yeah, it had a little twist. So
okay, what was next? Oh boy, New Ground. Let me just read this one to remind us. Geordi can barely curtail his enthusiasm at being able to test out a new theory of transportation as Worf's mother boards the Enterprise with his son and news that Worf's earthly parents can no longer care for him. So this was the big Alexander comes home to roost episode. And
your
Worf
favorite.
Oh, did you see the thing I sent you?
Yeah.
Because actually, I'm just going to show everybody this here. This meme
It was a Happy
here.
Father's Day gift or something.
Yeah, it was
I
like,
think it was.
I mean, a lot of people have seen this before, I'm sure, but it's so funny. So it's Guinan talking to Worf. She says, "Happy Father's Day, Worf," and he says, "What? I'm not." "Oh yeah, thanks." Good old Worf.
Yeah, that basically sums up this episode. You know, the Roshenkos and everybody trying to push off, you know, Worf's mom trying to basically drop off his kid and saying, "Look, we can't do this anymore." And, you know, that's when we see Alexander. And that's another character that we really get more of in this season as well, right? This is just one thing after another. And so, yes, um, you know, I also remembered Skeletor, the Worf combat
Yes.
buddy.
You know, that's what they kind of did. It seemed like, now remember, we basically lost Wesley Crusher as a main character, right? He used to be a main character. And it seemed like in the second season, they added Guinan to be pretty main, but then she just kind of wasn't around. You know, she was probably busy winning Emmys or whatever. And so she was around sporadically. And then remember in the first and second season, they kept trying to introduce new characters like the Benzite guy, Mordock, or Ensign Mendon. And then they brought in Dr. Solar for one episode and she never came back. But now they're getting better at this, right? They brought in Alexander and we've seen him a few times. They brought in Ensign Rowe. We've seen her a bunch of times, you know? So now we're seeing more of Guinan. So now it's like we have the core 7, but we definitely have some recurring characters. Barkley, we've seen him a couple times too, you know? So that's what I like about these later seasons.
I put Alexander on that list too. You know, I know you're not the most fond of it, but you know, that was...
No, he's definitely there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it's part of the whole, like I said, world building for these guys. You know, we see the extended characters that are interconnected.
And I think Keiko's been only in 1 or 2 episodes. She's been mentioned a couple other times, but she really gets her recurring character roles in Deep Space Nine. I think we've seen her once or twice. I think it's twice, right? Yeah. Once when O'Brien was marrying her, and then once when in Disaster, you know, when she's giving birth. Like that's it. They're like, okay, your job is to get married, and then another episode, your job is to give birth. And she's like, can I cook and clean too in the 3rd episode, bro? Jeez, give me something to work with here.
Yeah.
But anyway, episode 11 was Hero Worship. So Hero Worship was when Data rescues that orphan kid, Timothy, and Timothy starts to emulate Data. Remember, Data starts combing his hair with 2 combs for some weird reason? There was that scene.
Yeah. Not the greatest episode for me. It was okay though, because there was some comedy in there. There were those,
definitely,
you know, that boy was good at imitating Data. I remember the daycare and them putting, you know, this whole little thing together. It's like Roman Colosseum looking thing. But this episode was directed by Patrick Stewart. So this was, if I'm not mistaken, one of his first directing episodes.
I think it was his first, yeah. First or second?
First or second, right.
All right, well, what was next after? Oh, boy. Then there was Violations, everybody's favorite, Violations. That's one that you just kind of watch it and you're just trying to get through it because it's not, it's where this guy kind of like violates Deanna Troi because he's got like this mind thing and, you know, like, and he's pretending to be other people, getting violent with people and stuff like that.
Yeah. He's like getting in your mind, and it was like kind of like a sexual violation episode. It wasn't that, you know, it was kind of traumatic to watch. It's it leaves a bad feeling when you feel what it's trying to make you feel.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it wasn't my favorite. I can say that.
Yeah,
Got a 6.2 on IMDb.
I can agree that it wasn't your favorite, but or mine. But then up next, we had the Masterpiece Society, just reaching the midway point of the season already. And we had the Masterpiece Society. We had a very special guest, our friend, our pal, Dr. Muhammad Noor, because there was all kinds of biology stuff. I don't know how we could have gotten through it without him, because we had so many questions. We're like, this is really interesting, but can you dumb it down for us? At least that's how I felt. I'm like, can you explain it in a way which he does so well, which is he still explains it in some complicated fashion, but for some reason he says it in a language that my brain can grasp, and I feel smarter. He makes me feel smart listening to him because I'm like, yeah, I get it, bro. I get it. Well, I'm with you. He's great.
Yeah, and the basic theme behind this one was some kind of genetic selection in which they're
Mhm.
looking for perfection and they're trying to achieve perfection amongst their society. I
Right.
remember one of the offensive things that lines that stuck out to me was when the guy looked at Jordy and he says, you know, I'm sorry, I know you're embarrassed by your
Right.
disability.
His eyes. Yeah.
And then, he said, if you were born here or we would have discarded you, you know, you wouldn't have value to us. And that's where he became the problem solver at the end. And it was like, remember the guy that you would have thrown away and
Yeah.
killed? What?
Saved your life, saved your planet. So what would that have
Yeah,
said about your planet? Nothing. You'd be gone. No,
exactly.
and that's great. And that's a very Star Trek kind of thing
Yeah.
to do. Um, we're going to take our break right here, but the next episode, because we're right at the midway point, the next episode, not only was it our 500th episode review, 500,
Big
um,
5-0.
every single
Oh.
week, sometimes twice, no 5-0s. But also, we had a gigantic guest joining us. It was a first time guest for us, and we're super excited. So
Big time.
stick around, everybody. He was number one in our hearts. We'll be right back on the seventh rule. Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the seventh rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello.
Man, he is cool. Tell you what, today he told me I had a cool shirt on, and I felt like I should go buy a lottery ticket or something. I'm like, I'm the coolest guy ever now.
Hey, I like that shirt.
Thanks. It's just a Warriors finals shirt, everybody. But and then we got sidetracked talking about how the NBA and the NFL have good fashion and style. It's really cool. Anyway, here are the trivioids of the week. There are no trivioids this week because we are doing our season 5 review special. Up next is season 5, episode 14, one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek ever. Conundrum. And we had an incredible first-time guest, Mr. Jonathan Frakes. Remember, Patrick Stewart had his directorial debut on something I would consider as a good directorial debut. Give him something easy, not a ton of action, not a ton of anything, just something to get his feet wet, something to kind of test out the waters and work out the kinks. Jonathan Frakes, they gave him Conundrum, and he went gangbusters on crazy shots and upside downs and angles, and he was incredible. What a beautifully directed episode, and a star was born, basically.
Yeah, this is the one where he hooks up with Rolaren, right? If I'm not mistaken.
That's why it's his favorite episode too.
Yeah, and then she had the line where she says, "You don't strike me as a man who needs a holodeck program to have a good time."
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
the opening line right there. Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure to have Jonathan Frakes on. He was definitely a pleasure. One of the most, if not the most prolific director in Star Trek. Certainly, as far as longevity and
Mm-hmm.
the scope and breadth of shows that he's covered.
How many different
Uh,
series? I mean, yeah, he's just in
exactly.
every series. It's crazy.
Yeah, so he has, his finger on the pulse of what it means to be a Star Trek director, actor, and essentially what the series is about. So I would say it was a true honor to have him on. I did like to see him when he kind of hooked up with Ro Laren, because I felt that you know um, connection was there. The
Yeah, no, it's
chemistry was
really good connection. It's really smart of the writers to identify that. Yeah.
yeah. So this was easy for me.
Brilliant episode, brilliantly written, brilliantly directed. And like I
Yeah.
said before, it was one of the very first episodes I'd ever seen. So I was like, who is that guy? I don't remember seeing him. But then I was like, I guess it's just another one of these characters that I just didn't, because it was only like the third episode or second episode. So I was like, I guess he just wasn't in the previous episode, which was perfect. So I was along for the ride. And then we had episode 15 was Power Play. Boy, that was the one where Marina Sirtis broke her coccyx. Marina Sirtis fell on her, jumped back onto her butt and broke her coccyx. And apparently, when the one time she wanted to do her own stunt, she broke her coccyx.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's the story, I believe. Anyway, the point is that was the one where O'Brien had something to do finally, other than being in the transporter room. What fun! Good for him.
Yeah. So poor Marina. I remember that stunt too. She flew back in the turbo lift, right, or something, and
She
got
flew back
zapped.
on, yeah, exactly. She got zapped, flew back. She wanted to do her own stunts. They said, "All right, go for it," and she did it great. But she broke her.
Yeah. Well, it's better than sucking disc.
Oh, jeez.
Conscious. Yeah. So this was not that, but this was also a David Livingston episode. So David's
The other most
always given
prolific
us
director, yeah.
the other most prolific director. So you're always going to get some good stuff with him. Brandon Braga, Maurice Hurley, Paul Rubin. Yeah.
Yeah, Maurice Hurley was a weird name to see in the fifth season. That was surprising. But
Yes.
uh, another weird name we had.
Oh, I can't hear you.
Oh,
You,
sorry.
you.
Season 5, episode 16, Ethics. I had to clear my throat there.
Yep. Yeah.
There's a lot of allergies out in LA, everybody. And this was when we had that rogue doctor. She was like an expert, and I think it was for Worf, right? Yeah. And she was an expert in her field, but you don't get to be an expert in a field without taking a few risks. Problem is, Beverly's like, yeah, but taking a risk on someone's life, not necessarily
Mm.
something I want to do.
Yes, I remember that. This is Worf episode. I think he was paralyzed or something to that degree, and he wanted to
Yep.
kill himself because he felt useless. And this was like a experimental thing that she was trying to do on him, and the idea of the ethics involved was basically the center of the storyline. Um, I did think that this episode had some really good close-ups, some good moments in there.
Yeah.
And this was a Chip Chalmers episode, which I enjoyed working with Chip Chalmers. I thought it was fun.
Hmm. Hey, you know what else was fun? The next episode was basically, let me make sure I'm not skipping ahead, right? This next episode was basically might be a top 3 episode for me ever of TNG. It's the
Wow.
episode that I introduce people to Star Trek with. If somebody's never seen Star Trek before, I say, here's one episode, watch it. If you like it, you'll like Star Trek. And that episode is Cause and Effect, starring Frasier. And you liked it, right?
Oh yeah, that's the next one. Sorry,
Did I skip? Oh, no. I'm so sorry. I skipped The Outcast. That's right.
all
Andre
right.
3000. Oh, man. I was too excited about that one.
Yeah,
Oh, no. The Outcast. That
I
was
was
a
like,
good
"This is your
one.
favorite." You set me up with that. Okay, yeah, the Outcast was good. They were doing Federation Day,
Yes.
founding that, and um, a warrior does not let a friend face danger alone. Yeah, I remember this one. Um, it was okay. We had Soren and Riker with a long kiss.
Riker's like, Equal opportunity, man. He is an equal opportunity ambassador. This guy,
Yeah.
he puts the
What?
in ambassador. Anyway, but now let's talk about Cause and Effect starring
Now Cause and Effect.
Frasier. Woohoo!
Yes.
Beautiful episode, just brilliant. Every time I see it, it's more and more brilliant to me. And I believe Jonathan Frakes also directed this one.
Yeah, this is a Brandon Braga written episode. Jonathan Frakes directed it.
Mm-hmm.
I love this episode. This is one of those, when we have time episodes, some people don't like the temporal time loop stuff because they just think it doesn't, science out, or the math doesn't work on, you being alive and also seeing yourself in the past, or whatever the math is on that. But I enjoyed this one a lot because it really showed them paying attention to the idea that they were in this causal time loop.
Mm-hmm.
And they started to pick up on, poker hands and reading different, being able to have like a deja vu feeling like, hey, wait a minute, this is about to happen. I know what's about to happen. So I thought that was a great episode. It
was kind of a Beverly episode. And correction, this was the one that was actually Jonathan Frakes' first episode. The previous one, when he was a guest, was directed by Les Landau, I believe. But this was the one where they said, all right, we'll give you your first episode, and it's going to be a doozy. And he just destroyed it. I remember when he would get the close-ups at the right time, just at someone's reaction or in mid-sentence. At one point, Riker is kind of saying something, and it's like in mid-sentence, suddenly it's like, boom, right in his face. The camera is just one of the best directed episodes, one of my favorite episodes ever, top 3, top 5.
It is a fantastic episode, but once you've seen it once, you've seen it 1,000 times, right?
Ho take us out, Ensign. Nice and slow. That's what he says like 10 times. And the next was The First Duty. And this was a Wesley Crusher episode. Wesley Crusher comes back to Star Trek, and Will Wheaton came back to the Seventh Rule, and we were so fortunate and grateful that he did, because he gave us some great insights. This was a very memorable episode too for me growing up. What'd you think of it? You loved it, right? It was a good one.
This was one of the best episodes for me because it dealt with, it's also for Will Wheaton's character.
Right.
Because it showed him in this, mature light that we finally get to see him acting and, making his own mind up and covering for his friends and having peer pressure and all of those things that come with being a young adult, growing up and trying to find your own way. I thought this was a perfect episode. Loved the scene with him and Picard in this episode. I thought that was fantastic, where Picard kind of gives him the whole "I'm disappointed in you" speech. It was really good.
Yeah.
And this was one of my favorite episodes of this season.
Robert Duncan McNeil. This was where Tom Paris was theoretically created, and every single guest star we noticed was fantastic. The dad was great. Cito Jaxa was great. The Nova Squadron leader was great, who was Robert Duncan McNeil. It was just, they just found amazing actors to fill in these roles all in one episode. It was really cool.
And we also got, this is the preeminent, this is the episode that would eventually, spin off into Red Squad.
I think so. It's certainly very similar. It's Nova Squadron, Red Squad. It's very obviously it's a tie-in there. Yeah.
And the main character was arrogant and self-centered and had the same kind of bravado and thought he was a great leader and all of those same qualities. So I thought this was an excellent episode. Definitely shout out to Robert Duncan McNeil for again shining so much that he ended up getting his own role afterwards in something else.
Similar to what Michelle Forbes did with Ensign Rowe, but she just didn't take it. But yeah, sometimes they say this kid's got something. Sometimes it's Jeffrey Combs, and they're like, just bring him back, just keep bringing him back. Or it's Mark Alimo.
Sure, Mark Alimo, who eventually we're going to get to at some point in this season as well. So yeah.
Okay, the next one was The Cost of Living. And our guest was Christopher Halstead. It was so cool to get his point of view. It's great to have people like Jonathan Frakes, but it's also great sometimes to have somebody that was a little bit more behind the scenes. It was a little bit more like a fly on the wall, where he would watch, he would get all the makeup applied and kind of listen into the conversation, see what's going on, kind of take it in. And it was a very memorable experience for him. So he was able to transfer that over to us 30 years later. It's amazing.
And the beautiful thing about that is, just like, with Leonard Crowfoot, when you get these kinds of stories from people that have a genuine, once in a lifetime changing moment on the show, that they value those stories in a different way than somebody who's there every day. And it's just a daily grind for them. So they don't have those kind of same, like, if you ask half of the cast, you're like, hey, so tell me a funny story. They're like, I don't remember anything funny. Like, you were there.
I was working.
But if you ask somebody who was there for a guest star and say, hey, do you remember anything? And they're like, yeah, I remember everything. The director
every detail 35 years later. Yeah.
First, I went to the fitting room, and then these were the lines I rehearsed with, and this was the audition, and they know everything because it was such an impactful moment in their life.
And I wore my favorite green socks.
So yes, those are some of the best stories that we get on the seventh floor. So I'm grateful.
Absolutely, really great guest, really cool. Next was The Perfect Mate. With our friend and Star Trek documentarian Dave F. Zappone joining us. Yeah. He was one of those, I said, hey, what about A Perfect Mate? And he's like, Famke Janssen, right away. Like, this guy knows his Star Trek. It was fun to have him on. This one it was different than how I remember it. I remember, honestly, I kind of remember being a little like gross, and that they're talking about this lady being a perfect mate, this and that. But then when I watched it now, I realized there was much more nuance to it. Like, she was like the Jem'Hadar, that yes, they are bred for one thing, but now that they are bred for that thing, this is truly what gives them happiness. Like, they want to fight, they want to win, they want to get back their life when they go into war. For her, she was like, don't feel sorry for me. This is what I want. This is who I am. This is what I like. But then there are also these beautiful moments with Picard. It was a very nuanced and kind of weird episode.
Yeah, at least it wasn't as pervy as some of the stuff we had in the earlier seasons, right? There wasn't any serious violations or anything going on. And they were really concerned about her ability to have freedom of choice, and so I think they were protecting her liberty in that way in this episode. And she chose to be the way she was. So there was, that debate was happening. But the other thing that I thought was interesting was that Picard was the person she actually bonded to,
right?
In
not
that
Riker.
Window of time.
Yeah, you would have thought that it would be Riker, and then he would cross every boundary. At least Picard was cool about it.
Yeah, Riker's still pissed about that. He's like, bro, what, I'm the perfect mate.
Jonathan Frakes comes up to the writers, slams down the script. What the hell is this? What do you, there's a typo there. I think it says Picard by accident. And they're like, no, Picard, you've had like 17 episodes this season. You're okay. We're only 20 episodes in.
That's funny. Yeah.
The next one was I also remember this episode, but for different reasons. Imaginary Friend, where the girl was going like, Isabella, and there was that girl did a great job of being creepy, though.
Oh yeah, she was creepy. She was the imaginary friend was creepy. Yes, absolutely. And she was also like, she was bullying the person imagining her. It's like, the last thing you want is imaginary friend being a jerk to you.
An imaginary bully. Yeah, who's going to do that?
It's like, who are you talking to? It's like, my friend Isabella's telling me that I need to.
It's a bully. Yeah.
It's a bully. Yeah, this wasn't my favorite, but I do remember, if I'm not mistaken, Guinan was in this episode, and she mentioned she kind of stole the scenes from me with her, because her softness, her empathy is so on a high level that, when she comes in and says, I had an imaginary friend too, and she gives her own story. It was
like a monster. It's like a flying lion or something.
Exactly.
Tiger.
was one of the memories for me in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do the Isabella reenactment, that just makes me hate it even more. So.
Thank you. I'm not sure what that.
It reminds me why I don't like it that much. Isabella.
It's kind of like if you say, when you sing that song, it really reminds me how much I hate it. But here's an episode we don't hate. Not that we hated the previous one. Borg, and we had an awesome first-time guest, Mr. Jonathan Del Arco, Hugh himself, joining us for this one. Great episode, great guest. A lot of people love this episode and put it at the top of their lists.
Yeah, this was the Borg episode, right? This is
yeah.
Hugh the Borg was basically unassimilating or just finding his own identity. This was a great episode. I thought Jonathan Del Arco gave a personal story about his experience coming from Uruguay and coming here and being an actor and getting the opportunity to do this episode and not realizing how much makeup he signed himself up for as a Borg. But then he went on to have a fantastic career, and he's worked on everything under the sun. So kudos to him for launching his career earlier on in this time.
Yeah, and it's a great episode that people love. People talk about it all the time. People love Hugh, which is why he came back for I think 7 episodes of Picard. He helped to launch that series. He was one of these guys that came back before everybody came back in season 3. He was one of the familiar faces besides Picard. He might have been, was Picard, it was 7 of 9, and it was Hugh. Those were the familiar faces, I believe. I can't think of any others. I mean, later in one of the episodes, we had Riker and Troy too. I think that was episode 7 with the pizza.
And we had Q too, right? Was Q on there?
I was trying to remember if he was in the first season or not. I can't remember.
Couldn't remember.
But I was thinking about him too. All right. Then next we had a cool one. I don't think it's ever put in anybody's top 5 or anything like that, but it's definitely one that I liked very much. The next phase, because we got Geordi and Ro. It's just a fun, easy to follow episode. And we get to see LeVar Burton showing off his acting chops. We get to see an Ensign Ro episode, not just kind of an episode that's called Ensign Ro or one where she humps Riker, but it was a Ro and Geordi episode. And I freaking loved that. It was great.
Yeah. This is this was a pretty good episode. This was when Data refers to Geordi, I think, as my best friend.
Oh yeah, and he was going to say his eulogy, and he set up his little memorial party.
Yeah.
And then Riker says, I'm gonna say some stuff at Ro's thing, and Picard's like, oh, okay. And Ro's like, what are you gonna say? What?
What? Exactly. And then he gets up and he starts playing the trombone or something. And I'm like, all right, okay, this guy
always with his bones. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pretty good episode. David Carson directed this. Ronald Moore wrote it.
Can't say enough about the Geordi and Ro show, though. I really love that very much. The next one, now what's insane about this one is there are only 2 episodes left in this season, and usually episodes like 22, 23, 24, 25 are kind of like the leftovers, whether it's the episodes that they never quite, they would write it and then it would sit on the back burner. And they would come back to it and it would sit on the back, it would just kind of take a while to use. And then they're like, all right, I guess it's good enough, or I guess it's good to go. Or sometimes it was just an episode where they didn't know if they were going to use it and they're running out of ideas, or whatever it is. They all have their reasons. But a lot of times there's a little dip around those last few episodes until the very last one. Then the very last one, they go nuts again. But this bucks that trend in a big way, because some people say, maybe more than any other episode, this is quoted as people's favorite episode of Star Trek ever. Huge.
I can see that. Got a 9.4 on IMDb.
Wow.
IMDb, DMV. Yeah, this is a great episode. Peter Allen Fields was a teleplay with Morgan Grondel, or Gendel.
Oh yeah.
Morgan Gendel. Yeah. I don't know what to say. The man lives a lifetime, trying to find, trying to find a way back to where he came from, and then eventually accepts that he's there. And the story about him at the end, I think he gives a great line. He says, "I'm the someone. I'm the one who finds it." Like he has this realization that this whole thing was designed for them to leave an impression on him, so he remembers this lost, forgotten civilization. So I thought, fantastic episode. Definitely one of the best Star Trek episodes I've ever seen. We had Peter Lauritsen directed. I don't really remember working with him.
I've seen his name a bunch of times, but it might not be in Deep Space Nine. Yeah.
I don't remember working with him. Maybe he did an episode I wasn't in, but
I'm going to check super quick. Let's see. He basically, Next Generation was basically his second job. That's producing. Okay, so he's only directed Star Trek episodes. He directed 2 episodes of Next Generation. That was this one, The Inner Light, and 1 episode in season 7 that I'm not going to say because it's the one I referred to earlier when I said one of my favorites. I just checked that. I was like, oh, that's another callback on that one. And then he also directed an episode of Voyager season 7, Lineage, but he was a co-producer, consulting producer on The Next Generation, every single episode. That's where we saw his name. I think I would see it in the end credits constantly. Every single 176
no Deep Space
Nine? Nope. Oh, wait, yes. He was, supervising producer, and consulting producer in every single episode of Deep Space Nine and every episode of Voyager, basically, except for a few. And the Star Trek Next Generation movies.
Any directing, though? Any directing Deep Space Nine?
Nope. He was strictly
I
a
never
producer.
worked with him as a director.
Right. He was always behind the scenes. He only directed 3 episodes, 2 of Next Generation, 1 of Voyager. But he was present throughout all of them.
Yeah, we have to track him down. If we can get a hold of him for season 6. When we're reviewing, because he obviously has like a database of knowledge.
Or the season 7 episode that he directed. That would be really cool. Love to find him. Love to find him.
Let's see if we can find him, guys, and get his inside take on a lot of things. But he did one of the greatest episodes of Star Trek, The Inner Light. And it was well done. The planet scene stuff that was really well done because he used some really nice lighting effects. That stoop that Picard was sitting in front of playing the flute. The callback with the flute at the end. I mean, this was a beautiful chef's kiss of an episode.
I wonder if, as a producer, he says, "Hey, I know I don't usually direct, but this episode's really good. I want to direct." I wonder if he just chose it because of how good it was. Because you got to see all the scripts, I'm sure. So then we move on to the last episode of season 5, which is another banger. Time's Arrow. And it didn't say part 1, or did it say part 1? I think you said it did.
It did say part 1. Yeah,
okay.
It did.
Somewhere where I saw it, it did not say part 1. And I was like, oh man, that would be so rude if it didn't say it. So people just didn't know it was a 2-parter until it just, you would always get that when you're watching TV as a kid. You're like watching it and you're like, wait a minute, there's only 7 minutes left in this episode. They're not going to have time. Well,
there's no way they can figure this all out.
Nowadays, we're like, great, a 2-parter. This is amazing. But back then we're like, I don't want to wait 4 months to find out what happens.
Yeah, that's true.
It was a great one.
I would say that this is a very good episode. This is, Data being in the past and figuring out whatever dimension he is trying to figure his way back out here. I'm the reason I'm going through my notes again is because, and I'm now double checking and confirming, It is official. Les Landau directed the most episodes this season.
Oh.
Cliff Bole would be the second place, I believe, and then David Carson. But Les Landau did the most episodes this season. He did this fine Time Zero episode, and he did a few of the other episodes that I can see here. Ensign Rowe. He did, I guess, every Unification Part 1.
Conundrum, I think it was.
Yeah.
More is less, man.
Yeah, so he's Les Landau is definitely Conundrum, as you said. Anyway, so he's been doing a lot of work. This episode was great. We had Marco Limo, where we got a chance to bring him back into the fold, as the poker player. I mean, this is a good episode. I still haven't seen the second part. I'm actually
right.
Well, I want to know how it ends. Obviously, we know that Data is going to still be around, but it's just a great season. This season has at least 10 episodes that are must rewatches.
Totally.
Not just a watch again, or I would watch it, but kind of like you should rewatch this if you're going to go forward.
Couldn't agree with you more. And I should have said less is more. That sounds better than more is less, but less is more. That's a good one. Anyway, so that is all 26 episodes. We're going to jump into our free-for-all in just a second, everybody, where everybody's going to have to tell us their 3 favorite episodes. They're going to be sweating. They're going to be like, but I can't choose. But they're going to have to. Boy, it's going to be a tough one. So everybody at home, what are your 3 favorite episodes? We're going to talk all about it. Oh, let's also mention our 3 favorite people. Here are our 3 favorite people. Dr. Anne-Marie Seagull, Eve England out in Wales, excuse me, Yvette Blackman, Tom T.J. Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Titus Muller, Dr. Mohammed Noor, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Jake Barrett, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manosfi, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Glenn Iverson, Dave Gregory, Chris Sternett, Greg K. Wickstrom, Cassandra G. Chuck A. Chris Garris, Steve Case, Oliver Manali, and of course, Jason M. Oken. That was 3, right?
Okay.
All right. We'll be right back. Stick around. We'll be right back, everybody, on the 7th Rule. Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the 7th Rule with Sir Rock Loft, and this is the Free-for-All with Melissa Lungo.
Hello.
Hello.
And Jason M. Oken. That is a really cool background. That was like the old...
it is.
That's the old DVDs.
Yeah. Beautiful. Faith is out on the Enterprise D. Cassandra G has her cool 7th Rule pillow with her, always. Carrie Schwent looks like she's got every episode. I see Isabella episode back there.
That's Ryan's favorite.
Steve Case reminds us all to be kind. Eve England is out in Wales. It's like 3 a.m. for her right now. Chuck A has his cool background as always. Allison Leach Hyde looks like she's got some L cars. That's pretty cool. Chris McGee's got the isolinear chip. I always forget that word. And the Matt Boardman is hanging out with the TNG crew. All right. So Carrie said she's got an average for the season of the IMDb score. So let's guess what that is. Jake Sisko guesses the average IMDb score for season 5.
Let's see. I would say there's a couple bad ones there. I'll bring it down.
Ryan's favorite was the least one with the 6.0.
Yeah, it's a 6 point in there. I'm going to say like probably an 8.1, maybe 8.2 on average, something like that.
Does anybody else have any guesses that doesn't already know? Well, nobody knows except for Carrie, probably.
I agree with the 8.2.
7.8.
I was gonna guess
8.2 also.
I was gonna guess 8.3.
Getting in the ballpark here.
Yeah, I get to guess for the first time here, and you guys are really close, but there were some 6s. If I remember correctly, but there were a couple 6s. So I'm going to say 7.8. All bets are in. What's the answer, Carrie?
Ryan was the closest, 7.6.
Wow.
But not on the dot. Yeah. All right. See, because that's good. We remember the good ones. Non-appearance mentions, none of that. No, some kind. All right, let's just get into it. Melissa Longo, you
Yes.
are on the hot seat, so to speak. What are your 3 favorite episodes of season 5?
So this was really hard to narrow down because there were a ton of really great ones. But I knew the assignment and I ran with just 3. And just 3, top 3. Of course, there's many more, but top 3 is Darmok. That's probably one of my favorite Star Trek episodes ever. And maybe that's because I always saw it on the syndication, so it's been burned in my brain. But I love that episode. I love the relationship between Picard and, now I'm blanking on his name, but the other dude. Thought they were wonderful.
Dathan?
Dathan, yes. Number 2 is Unification Part 1, because I think Mark Leonard should have won an Emmy for his performance in that episode. He was fantastic. And then again, there's a theme here. Picard is fantastic. Patrick Stewart is a fantastic actor too, because he always plays well with others. So I love that one. And the third one is Iborg.
Nice.
Because I just want to give you a hug every time. That lovely Iborg.
I thought there was more to that. All right. She's like, no, I just my favorite because I want to give him a hug. That's it. Thank you very much, Melissa Long. Oh, we have the same background. Do we? Yeah.
Is it? No, it's not.
Almost. Jason M. Oken. Do you have 3 favorite episodes? You could do 3 least favorite if you want.
Oh,
you can do that too. I bet.
Either way you like, and they all tend to come in bunches, which is kind of interesting. It is, Melissa. You're absolutely right. It's hard to pick sort of something that stands out more than the others, and you have to nail it. Just kind of narrow it down to 3, but we can certainly do it. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of overlap as everybody starts talking. I'll go a little bit different, Melissa, from you. I think your choices were absolutely wonderful. I would go with Cause and Effect because of how unusual that show was. Certainly at the time. The one that immediately follows that, The First Duty, which I think was wonderful as well. And the third one is Iborg. Again, there were a lot of others that stood out. There were some clunkers, obviously came sort of, frankly, in a row. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
But again, on average, I think the season had a pretty high batting average overall. I think that's why we're talking about sort of the average score being higher. A few kind of dragged it down a little bit, but I think overall it's certainly enjoyable, and there are a lot of sort of, things you can pick and say, well, these are my top 3. I just selected those that kind of work for me more. Yeah, maybe right now. I can still change.
Yes, and maybe next year you'll have 3 new ones, 3 different ones in your top 3.
Exactly.
Thanks very much, Jason M. Oken. All right, this is what I've been waiting for. Faith, this is it. You've been singing the praise of season 5, and I think we all have come to the light and agree with you. But are there 3 episodes that really push it over the edge for you?
Well, I mean, putting together my list, it was definitely a top 11. And I probably could have thrown in more. I had to cut it somewhere. I'm going to, since I already am going to throw out there that I agree with all of you 100%. All of your choices are also my choices. I'm going to pick 3 that I think maybe will get less love from the group. So Disaster is and always has been my favorite. So that one has to be number one. That one is probably the only true 100% answer. Then I also really loved the game. Robin Leffler is just fabulous. I just find that episode so much fun to watch. And then Cost of Living, I think you guys didn't love so much, but I love Majel Roddenberry so much. I love Luoxana. I know, some people can take her and leave her, but that episode, I think, which she really shined in. So those are my top three.
Wow. Those are all dark horses. That's pretty awesome. Faith is like when somebody loves a band and they're like, yeah, but I liked them back in the day when they were garage band.
That is exactly my MO, yes.
That's pretty awesome. Thanks very much, Faith. All right, Cassandra G., what about yourself? Do you have 3 favorites?
I did. I had, of course, more, and we will leave that for things unsaid. But I purposely left out both unifications because I'm like, they're the greatest of all time. So I just left them out of my top 3. Number 1, Darmok. I love that. You have 2 leaders, so to speak, or 2 captains, and they're forced to communicate. And I'm like, oh, we should probably implement that in 2025. And then there is Iborg. And I love the way that Guinan, even though her entire race was basically like obliterated by the Borg, she still had compassion for Hugh. And, Picard was going through his own PTSD at the time. And so she kind of stepped in where Troy couldn't. And so I love that. And that also, I think, helps strengthen the relationship between the two. And the inner light. I love that. We talk about stepping into someone else's shoes. I mean, he stepped into someone else's life for a matter of minutes or hours, and it was an entire lifetime. And I love that through that, he gained the flute at the end, and through almost every other iteration of like future Star Trek, even up to, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name right now. Lower Decks, they still reference like the flute. And so that's kind of nice. But the others I will wait for the other segment.
Did you say Redemption 1 and 2? What was the one that you said are the
Unification.
best? Unification 1 and 2 are the best ever?
Well, they're like one of like the goats,
Wow.
like one of like the next generation. I mean, there's a few that really stand out. You have like the Iborg, Unification. Leonard Nimoy came back for this episode. It was like, it was and I'm a TNG fan, so.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Cassandra G. Great stuff. All right. Carrie Schwent, a.k.a. Crafty Bear. You got all 26 episodes behind you, but which 3 would you point at if somebody said point to your top 3?
Sadly, there is no Q episode, so I can't highlight Q, although there is a Waxana one. I did have 4, full disclosure, so I had a tie for 3, so I pulled up a little random number generator on my phone and picked between the 2. Anybody who wants to know number 4, if it comes up, we'll save that for things left unsaid. But my number 1 is Darmok, and I hyped that up when we reviewed it. I was looking forward to that one when we started TNG. It is such a fun one. I love the way Captain Dathan talks. Love that one. And because I am queen of the unpopular opinion, kind of like Faith, I went with some of my favorites that not everybody likes, and I love hero worship. Deanna's wonderful in it, and Data and Timothy, that just their whole relationship throughout the episode just tugs on the heartstrings, and those are kind of my favorite kinds. And so the tie what broke the tie is Disaster. And endless fun for me. We got Jean-Luc's progression with hanging with the kids. You've got Worf helping Keiko have Molly, and then of course Data's talking head sitting on a shelf. I mean, he is just super funny in it.
It's good stuff. Thank you very much. Sirach and I definitely talked about Data's head in our review today. We did. We had a good conversation about it. Thank you very much, Carrie Schwent, aka Crafty Bear, Steve Case, aka Joe Bugbuster. What's up? What'd you think of this season and your top 3? I don't know if
I
that's
really
correct
liked
sentence.
this season, which made it hard to choose just 3 for sure. First one came to mind was The Inner Light, and that's why I picked this one. Picard at the end with the flute. That was just such a touching part from a character that so often has to be, all put together as the captain. The relationships, Picard getting to actually be Picard, not just Picard, the captain. And in general, the series makes it clear that Picard is uncomfortable around children. But in this episode, he got to experience having a family, which I really appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
And iBorg, which several others have mentioned, brought back the Borg themes, including making it, again, very personal with Picard reliving his time as Locutus. And then Unification, which had Spock and Sarek. So again, Leonard Nimoy, Mark Leonard, and Sayla also. Denise Crosby got to come back for that. So it was a great episode to rewatch. Even though I remembered the twists, there were no surprises in this one for me because I've seen it a bunch of times. And sometimes when we rewatch an episode, I don't even remember the episode, but this one I remembered all about. And I especially caught some references I didn't the first time, though, like references to cowboy diplomacy.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think of Reagan and his tear down this wall and Germany's reunification and all that played into the plot. So there were some surprises in that. And I'll save the rest.
Great stuff. Man, I love the diversity of answers. I thought everybody was going to say Inner Light 3 times. Thank you very much, Steve Case. All right. Up next. Oh, man, this is going to be a good one here. Eve England is out in Wales. She's never seen The Next Generation before. She thinks it's rubbish. But what are your 3 least rubbish episodes?
Yeah, to be honest, I wasn't. I don't know. I must have been in a bit of a mood watching these because I just didn't really enjoy this season that as much. I was so excited because everyone picked it up, and there were just some howlers, which I think just took me out of the whole thing. Anyway, but I did manage to pick 3 of my favorites. So the First Duty is definitely up there. I just thought that was amazing. It was just so great to have more of a sort of impactful Wesley episode, and it just brought in so many different sort of thoughts on ethics. I love the sort of analogies with how you could see it with the DS9 Valiant episode. So I just really I thought that was a standalone, shining light to me in this season. And then the other 2, so the next one is Ensign Rowe. I just think she's fantastic, and I just love all of her episodes, and I just love how she just brought that conflict to the crew, and I think that sort of dynamic was great. I just kind of wish they'd done more with that. And then the last one is The Next Phase. I just thought that was just such a sort of, I loved how it was really lighthearted. It was all the great jokes, and the fact, that just the overarching concept that, they got Data planning their funerals, and it's, oh, let's see what everyone says about us when we die, because everybody kind of wants to know that. But then at the same time, they had those sort of deep questions about, what is death? What is the meaning of life? And how does sort of science conflict with religion and those conversations? So I thought it was like a really good dynamic of the sort of the light and the sort of more sort of serious conversations there. But just, I know there's not a 4th one, but I was just going to say that what I did like about this season, though, is I finally met the Picard that everybody sort of described when we started on this journey. And I feel like Picard is the Picard that, and I grew to like him more and more as the seasons progressed. And I think he really comes into his own in this season. So I did really enjoy that sort of the evolving character of Picard. And now we're finally there. And I actually like him. So yeah, I'm no longer a Picard hater from season 5.
One of us.
Yay!
Now you just have to like the show and we're all set.
Savage.
Thank you very much.
Engage.
Eve England out in Wales. Chuck A showing us his Engaged shirt. Perfect timing. You're up next. Chuck A, you've seen every episode probably 20 to 40 times. You've got some favorites.
Well, it is so hard to narrow down. People have picked some of the ones that I was debating on, but I think I'm going to go with Cause and Effect. I agree with Faith with Disaster. The third one, it's really tough to choose. I guess I'll have to go with The Next Phase, or a well done episode. I'm looking at the list right now on my phone, and there's very few bad episodes or mediocre episodes. It was really a tough choice to narrow it down, but we'll go with those. I love, like what everybody's saying, a lot more episodes, but if I'm limited to 3, those are the 3 I'll choose.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Chuck A. He's a TNG fanatic. All right, Allison Leach Hyde, you also like Star Trek. Do you have a top 3 of this season?
I do like Star Trek, just a little bit. So one of my favorite Next Generation episodes ever is in this season. So that's my favorite. It's Power Play. I love Power Play. Oh. Any chance to watch Marina Sirtis just rock it makes me really happy. And of course, Data picking up Picard by the throat. I mean, it's fabulous. Love that episode. That's my favorite of the season. And then I also really like Conundrum. I like them all working together to figure out who they are, what their mission is, and how to achieve this mission with having limited memories without hurting other people. Really like that. And of course, there's nothing better than that end scene of Riker's face when Troy and Ro are talking to each other. So love that too. And it's going to be a broken record. I'm going to be the third one in a row saying The Next Phase, because I love that episode too. It's a great Geordi episode, who is my favorite character. And so seeing him and Ro work together, because they're very different, but they worked really well together. And you could see their friendship throughout the whole episode. And I agree. I want to know what people would say at my funeral. So should do funerals before people die, celebrate them before. So those are my 3 favorites. It actually wasn't too hard for me to pick. So yeah, I'm happy with choices.
I can't imagine people being like, all right, who's getting their funeral this week? Well, let's, and they just picked it. It feels like a bad omen. Thanks very much, Allison Leach Hyde. All right, Chris McGee, you're up. Is a continent. Do you have 3 favorites?
I do, but I say that I know that most of us here count season 5 as their favorite, and I certainly agree that it is fantastic, even with the soft underbelly episodes, as Jason calls them. This season contains a lot of magnificent episodes, especially with the standout of the entire series, in my opinion, which I'll get to in just a moment. However, I firmly believe that the best is yet to come in terms of seasons, specifically next season. But perhaps we can have a more informed comparison when we reach the end of that season and review it. So, coming in at number 3, Darmok, an iconic and unique take on overcoming language barriers in a world with universal translators. Number 2, Cause and Effect, a fantastic time loop plot before it was popularized by Groundhog Day. And number 1, of course, it has to be The Inner Light, arguably the best episode, or one of the best episodes of The Next Generation, with an incredibly well-written tearjerker. And lest we forget, I have some kind of count. In season 5, we had 22 total some kind ofs or some sorts ofs. Both Iborg and Times Arrow had 4 mentions. Wow. 13, half of the entire season, did not have any some kind of whatsoever. So that ties with last season, but season 1 still has the most mentions at 29.
Really?
The memorable quote of the season, the one that characterizes the entire season, I'll go with Worf from New Ground saying, "Very exciting."
Oh, wait. I just put in the chat that the shortest season had the most some kinds of, but actually season 2 was the shortest. So it's something to
And
remember.
it had only 12
Yeah.
mentions.
Oh,
Season
nice.
2 did.
Wow.
Thanks very
I'll
much,
have to
Chris McGee.
go
Great
back.
stuff. Yeah. All right. The Matt Boardman, what's up? You got a top 3 episodes, right?
Sure. We'll go with that. Because No, I love these middle seasons of Next Gen. They're so much fun, and there's so many fantastic episodes, and season 5 is definitely full of some bangers, right? I would say I don't know. I mean, these. I was trying to think of like what ones do I would I say, but for sure, Cause and Effect, uh, Conundrum. I love both of those two because it's the crew working together to figure out a mystery, right? I don't know. They've always been favorites of mine. And then I'd say the last one is The First Duty. And I like that one because we get introduced to a few people. We get Robbie McNeil, who goes on. We get to see in Voyager. We get Ensign Cito, who we may or may not see later. I don't know. Maybe just throwing it out there. But I like this idea that we watch. I love the character of Wesley. I do, and for so many seasons we got to see him be this. He was this problem solver. He was always saving the day, and now he's in a situation where he done messed up and a big time, and I enjoyed that struggle of watching him just finally decide to let it all out in the open. This is what happened, because I think that's a good life lesson to us all, right? Because there's nobody likes to get in trouble, but there's something, for as much as it sucks to get in trouble, there is something freeing about telling the truth and being truthful about actions and stuff like that, because despite the consequences, I would rather live with the consequences of something that I did wrong than live with the guilt of something I did wrong and hoping and praying that someday nobody finds out. So I love the moral lessons that are taught in that, and even at the end, I love to see that Picard, for as much as he was mad at Wesley during that episode at the beginning, and once he found out everything, at the end of it, it's like there's this increase of love toward Wesley. It's like, yeah, you're gonna have to live with this, but we're here for you. So anyway, love those 3 episodes.
Mm-hmm. Thanks very much. The Matt Boardman, Sirach. It's time for Jake's final take. Give us your final take on the season. Give us 3 of your favorite episodes, whatever you want. You're driving, so don't do anything crazy.
Yeah, I was trying to think of 3 bangers, so I narrowed down like 12 episodes that Riker was banging in. So Conundrum's in there. It's a whole list. Riker bangers, but no, I kind of agree with everybody. I think they all have different reasons why they stand out, and they're memorable. Definitely can see the maturity in Picard's growth throughout the series, and now I think he's really come to a place where he has a high level of wisdom and measured empathy, and he's very captain-like. Let's say in this season, I would say. My favorite episodes are going to be Darmok. I think Paul Winfield might edge out the best guest star of this season, in my humble opinion. I thought he was fantastic in that, opposite Picard. It was a lot of heavy lifting for him to do with the language barrier and still being able to communicate the scenes. So, fantastic job by him in that episode, as well as Sir Patrick Stewart. And then the second episode on my list would be Cause and Effect. I like that episode a lot. I was a big fan of Groundhog Day in general, but it gave us a chance to see Jonathan Frakes directing for the first time, if I'm not mistaken. And that began some of my other favorite thing to do was just watch his directing. So I think he was fantastic in that episode. There were a lot of beats there when people started to realize that they were in this time loop that I liked a lot. And then lastly, I think my last one is going to be The Inner Light. I had heard so much about it, people talking about it. It's one of those things that you always hear, like Yesterday's Enterprise. And you just hear these titles, and they just stick with you because the titles keep hearing it over and over again. So I had heard Inner Light, and it was not what I guess was anticipating it would be about. So that was a surprise for me. And I think it showed a side of Picard that I wish I could see more of, which is somebody who is, willing to engage in relationship with somebody. I feel like he's so stonewalled that he's not willing to let his guard down for a while so that somebody can actually get to know the guy underneath all of those Shakespeare books. And so I thought The Inner Light gave us a chance to see a version of what that would look like if he actually forfeited his responsibilities as a captain and didn't put that as a priority in his life, and he had other things that were prioritized. So, those are my three. And then my runner-up guest star, best guest star of the season, for me, is going to be Robbie Duncan McNeil. I think that he was fantastic in First Duty. He brought out some really good elements of Will Wheaton as well, because he was able to play off of somebody that was closer in age to him. So we got to see how Will acts when he's around people that his age closer. So that was also a fantastic episode as well. I know you guys mentioned it. And yeah, I enjoyed this season a lot. I still think that there are episodes from other seasons that would definitely be in my top tier. I still have Measure of a Man as the best episode I've seen so far. But I like all of these as well.
Wow. Nice. Great stuff. That was Jake's final take. And that's it for us, everybody. So please remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications. If you're listening, and give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Get Ryan's top 3.
Oh, that's way too hard. I'm not going to do that. I got like 8 or 9. I don't know how you guys do it. Rude. I could do 2. Conundrum, Cause and Effect, Easy, Disaster. Yeah, okay. I think that's where I am.
There you go.
Those are the most memorable, at least. Thank you very much to the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Allison Leach Hyde, Chuck A., Eve England out in Wales, Steve Case, Carrie Schwent, Cassandra G., Faith Howell, Jason M. Oken, Melissa I. Hug Borg Longo. For myself, Sirach, Melissa, Mr. Aaron Eisberg, thank you all very much for taking this journey through season 5. Dude, that's it. Season 5. Feels like just yesterday we were doing season
crazy
2.
And I have a question for everybody on things left unsaid.
Ooh.
Yeah, stay tuned for that.
Yep. Can't wait to find out what that is, but you're going to have to. All right. But not long, really, if you're a patron. We'll see you next time, everybody. And until then, always remember the 7th rule.